Let's start by talking about the shared responsibility model, or who secures what in a cloud environment. If we take a step back and look at cloud computing in general, there are multiple types of computing services. The three main ones are infrastructure as a service, platform as a service, and software as a service. What really differs between those deployment models is how much you manage versus how much the cloud vendor manages. Let's start with on-premises, where it's pretty easy. You're the one that manages everything from storage to the data center to networking, virtualization, and applications on top of it. Infrastructure as a service delivers cloud computing infrastructure to organizations, including things such as servers, networks, and storage through virtualization technology. You, as the client, still manage the operating system, the applications, the data, and all of that. Platform as a service provides cloud components to certain software while being used mainly for applications. Platform as a service provides a framework for developers that they can build upon to create customized applications. All of the servers, storage, and networking is managed by the cloud provider, while the developer can maintain management of the applications and data on top of it. Our last option is software as a service, in which you simply enjoy the service, pay a fee, but you don't really manage anything at all. Everything is managed by the vendor. A majority of software as a service applications run directly through web browsers and don't even require any downloads or installations from the client. Something to also be aware of is, while we separate the workloads into different service types, most organizations will actually use products from each service type. For example, your organization might be using Azure Virtual Machines and Azure Storage, which would be in infrastructure as a service. You are also probably using Azure Logic Apps, Azure Functions, Azure Web Apps, or Azure Automation, which are platform as a service solutions. And if your company also uses productivity solutions such as SharePoint Online, OneDrive for Business, Microsoft Teams, you're also leveraging software as a service solutions, all while in the Microsoft Cloud. Now, why is this important for security? Security in the cloud is a partnership between the cloud provider and you. At a high level, the cloud provider operates and secures the base infrastructure and most of the time the host operating system layers, while you control and secure identities as well as additional application settings, for example, turning on multi-factor authentication or turning it off. This is not a set-in-stone list. Really, the responsibility highly depends on the service type that you have hosted. For example, in infrastructure as a service, the customer has more responsibilities than in software as a service. So let's take a look at who secures what in the cloud based again on the three cloud service types that we talked about. This is, again, also called the shared responsibility model. Let's start with on-premises, which is the easiest one because basically on-premises, the customer is responsible for securing everything from the physical data center to the network, hosts, applications, all the way to the information and data. If we move on to infrastructure as a service, the cloud provider now takes care of the physical data center, the physical network and host. However, everything over it, such as the operating system, applications, accounts and identities, falls under your responsibility as a client. Moving on to platform as a service, the customer has less things to worry about, and some of them, as you can see, are even a split responsibility. Remember that Platform as a service allows customers to put their own code on a platform ran by the provider. So for the application part, it's split. If the code that you add on there contains vulnerabilities, well, it's your responsibility, the customer's responsibility, not the cloud provider. Different things such as accounts and identities, devices, and information and data are still the responsibility of the customer. Lastly, software as a service, where the cloud provider hosts and is therefore responsible for most security settings. Even in this service type, security will always be a partnership, and the customer is responsible for accounts and identities, devices, and data governance and information as well as the data. As you can see, even if from a hosting perspective earlier, software as a service was the one where the cloud provider hosted everything, from a security perspective, it's still a partnership. To give you an example, if an employee gets their device stolen and it doesn't have a password, and then the person that steals the device, well, they have access to the data, that is your responsibility, not the cloud providers. Same thing if somebody clicks a ransomware link and accidentally gives their password away to a bad actor. It's not the cloud provider's responsibility that the user got hacked and sensitive data was accessed. It's your responsibility. Of course, cloud providers will offer you multiple ways to help you secure your cloud workloads, such as multi-factor authentication, but it's your responsibility to turn those features on for your users. If there's something important to remember, is that it's really your duty to understand and know what are your security responsibilities for each type of product and workload that you leverage in the cloud. The shared responsibility model is your guide to who secures what, but never forget that some things will always be your own responsibility.